I thought I'd do a video to see how I get on in the land of YouTube. And I thought that my first video would be quite a nice easy one where I could just tell you a bit of a story, a bit of a background. Being a mum of 3, I decided to do a video, well, if this one goes okay, of my birth stories, which is quite something that is quite relatable, obviously, because other people have given birth. So this one is going to be all about Eden's birth story and the pregnancy as well, so let's see how that goes. So I found out I was pregnant with Eden when I was 22. Me and Craig had only been together, well, we'd been together a couple of years, and we'd split up for, Remy's just woken up, hang on, he's gone back to sleep. So, but if you can hear like annoying white noise in the background, it's because the monitor's on. Yeah, so me and Craig had been together, I think 2.5 years, but we'd split up for 5 months just before that. And then we ended up getting back together, and within a month I was pregnant. So, practice safe sex. We decided that because on both sides we'd both been told that it would be very unlikely for either of us to have children, and we decided that, well, it was obviously just fate for us to have a baby, and we decided that the best thing to do was to have the baby and raise him. Well, we didn't know it was a him at the time. So yeah, I had a fairly easy pregnancy with Eden compared to the other two. Like, I thought at the time it was harder, but then that's my first pregnancy. I had nothing else to compare it to. And well, I had like a bit of morning sickness to start off with. Like, the way that I sort, well, my period was like late when I first found out that, obviously my period was late. That sounds like such a fucking stupid thing to say. My period was like 3 weeks late, and I just started like this new medication, and I thought that it was that had made my periods late. And then my cousin, who's a nurse, said, no, it wouldn't be that, do a test. And I was like, no, I'm not pregnant at all, I'm so not pregnant. And then one evening I was around my mum's house, and my cousin was there as well, and they were drinking, and I don't really drink, so I was there, and they were both sat in the sitting room, and I knew that I had a pregnancy test like left over from when I lived at my mum's house, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna go and do that to prove them wrong that I'm not pregnant. And I went and did it, and then it came up positive like really quickly. I was like, oh fuck, and just shouted, Mum! And she came in and she was like, oh no, and instantly realised what I'd done. So yeah, and then I had to ring Craig to say, because he was at work at the time, because at the time we worked together, and we worked at a nightclub. And he was finishing work, and I rang him and I said, oh, you need to come in to the house when you're picking me up. And he was like, oh, why? I was like, can you just do it, please? And I opened the door to him, and he was like, what's wrong? I said, I've just done a pregnancy test. So, yeah. I said, and it's positive. He went, oh, what does that mean? Which is a great start for when you've just found out that you're pregnant with that person's baby, that's their reaction. So you're kind of like, well, let's hope the baby turns out all right. Yeah, so then going into the actual pregnancy, I didn't really have that much morning sickness. If I ate, it made me feel better. I had nosebleeds, and it felt a bit faint, but that was it really. It wasn't all that bad. It was like quite an easy sort of pregnancy. My boobs were like, and I had big boobs anyway, but they were like, and I put on loads of weight. Like, I've got a double chin now. Like, I had 8 then. But yeah, so we were living in a flat at the time that had the worst damp, and it was so haunted, which was weird, and our cats didn't like it. And then we found a house, luckily, after living in that flat for just 2 months, because we couldn't live there and raise a baby. So we found this nice house that was 3 bedrooms. We moved in there, and then we, under the 20-week scan, we found out we were having a boy. And it took us, like, our name choices were just, we went all over the place. We went from Harry to something else. Well, for ages he was going to be called Bailey, and we were like really convinced that, yeah, that was the name. But I kept thinking, like, deep down, I was like, I didn't feel like that was his name. And so it was a bit like, no, I just knew that that wasn't his name. And like a few weeks before he was born, I said to Craig, I was like, I can't do it. I can't have his name as Bailey. And nothing against the name. It's actually well, Eden's got 2 middle names, but it's actually one of his middle names. So I still like the name. It just wasn't his first name. And then Craig came up with the name Eden. If you're looking for name suggestions at the moment, Nameberry, great website. It's where we come up with all 3 of the names. So yeah, we came up with that a couple of weeks beforehand, which was perfect timing. And then he was born on the 12th of January. I was 9 days overdue. And Craig was working at a different bar by this point, and because it being January, it was really quiet, so I went in with him to work the night before and decided to just sit on my laptop, and he managed to close up at like 9 o'clock because it was just so quiet. And then I hadn't felt well all day, but I thought, oh, I'm just coming down with a cold and stuff. And then when we were in the cafe, I was there and I was thinking, oh, if you've ever known about what it feels like to sort of just about go into labour, possibly, you feel a bit like you've got a bowling ball wanting to come out your vagina, and I could just feel that, and I was like, oh, there's just something not right. And then we had to walk back to the car from the cafe, and I was waddling because I had a bowling ball feeling like it's gonna fly out my vagina at any moment. So waddling along, got back home, Craig's like, I'm hungry. So of course the woman who's 9 days overdue then has to make us dinner at 11 o'clock at night. So I made him orange food of baked beans. I don't know how I remember these things, it's really weird. But yeah, so, and then we were sat there, and I'd been having Braxton Hicks, which, if you don't know, is fake, well, like, starter-up contractions, but you can have them from like 30 weeks onwards. And so I'd been having those for quite a while, and I started to feel them, and I thought, is this something, or is it just the Braxton Hicks again? And it carried on, and it started being like every 15 minutes to every 10 minutes. And I thought, no, this is something. And I said to Craig, I was like, right, you've got to go to sleep, because if I'm in labour, I need you to be there. And so he did the most sensible thing that he could possibly do and stay up and watch Star Wars. And then Fantastic Mr. Fox. So when I woke up, about 2 hours later, like in between sort of contractions, woke up and felt in a lot more pain. You can see, well, you can kind of see, but you can imagine the look on my face when I came downstairs and he was still sat there. Anyway, over that now, obviously. But luckily, thank God, my mum was also a birthing partner, so we rang her and she came shooting straight up. She rang me a bath, and that helped quite a lot. And then we were ringing the ward and they were saying, I can't come in yet, I have to wait until my contractions are closer together. And so it got to about 6 in the morning, and I've been using a TENS machine, which I so recommend. If anyone's thinking of doing a TENS machine, try it, because I managed to pretty much use that throughout most of the labour. And then we went into the hospital, and it is just like a blank of like remembering walking through the doors. I don't really remember walking through the doors. I just remember feeling like I'm gonna punch someone. Being in this like waiting area, this like with beds of other screaming women. It's like a cattle market of just women pushing things out of their vaginas, and luckily I managed to get taken in, and I want an epidural, please. And they said no, which I obviously really appreciated. And so it was going on for a little while, and I was having gas and air, and they checked me, and I was 6 centimetres. And when I'd first come into the hospital, I was 4 centimetres. So this has been like a couple of hours, and I'd gone up to 6 centimetres. And they broke my waters because they hadn't broken yet. And then they waited for like maybe a little bit longer, and then it started to really sort of progress quite quickly, and within quite a short space of time I was like, I need to push. They're like, no you don't need to push. Like, I fucking do. I really need to push. There's like, I'm gonna shit myself if you don't let me push. And of course the midwives know best, and apparently I didn't need to push. And then they looked and they're like, ooh, baby. And so they were trying to get me to push. I did not want to push then, because the actual reality of the fact that I needed to push, but then the fact that once I pushed, a baby would come out and I'd have to look after that baby, was a bit much. So they were like, push. I was like, no, I know, but obviously in a lot more of a screamy sort of way, so no. And they continued to try and get me to push, and I just didn't want to, but I had to because it really hurt. So eventually I pushed him out. I had 2nd-degree tearing. Thanks, Eden. Gonna remind you of that when you're 18. Maybe not with pictures. And he was born. And he was born at 11:44 in the morning. And it was so weird. The fact that from one moment to the next, I went from being a then 23-year-old who had no clue about barely even looking after herself, to then I had this responsibility of this tiny, tiny person. And it was just the oddest thing. I'd never experienced it before. And we went up to the ward, and after I'd had a bath and some tea and some toasts like you do, and my mum and Craig had got him dressed and things, and then we went up to the ward, and he was all just, I have these memories now of even when he's been really naughty and been a right little shit, I will look at him and I will remember this one memory of him lying in his cot, just wrapped up in this blanket, in this pure white sleep suit with a little hat on, just sleeping. And it's like he's the most angelic little thing. When he's now, I have to remember those things because he was just so tiny at one point, and now he's like nearly 7 and I'm growing up. But yeah, it was a good labour. It was fine. It was painful, but it was fine. And then I stayed in overnight. He had meconium, so he had to be monitored overnight, but he was fine. And then the next day we were allowed to go home. Craig's parents came up that evening to see us. I'll just do this face at that. Yeah, so then we went home the next day, and we've got one picture of us going home the next day, which we look horrific in, so I won't put it in because I look dead. The next few days were fine, pretty stressful. My milk came in, I cried for the whole day, but I'll save the whole first year story for another time. I hope you enjoyed my birth story and the gory details, and if you're about to give birth, good luck. It hurts, but it's worth it. So push out. That's not being sarcastic or like condescending, so don't take it as that. But thanks for watching. If you like it, press the like button. If you like more of the rubbish that I chat, subscribe. So thank you guys, and stay tuned for my other 2 birth stories because they are actually very different. So thank you.